Welcome to another episode of A Higher Education Moment, produced by the James G. Martin Center for Academic Renewal. I'm Jay Schalin, the Martin Center's Director of Policy Analysis, and I'd like to introduce you all to Nikole Hannah Jones. On paper, at least, Hannah Jones is one of America's most respected journalists. Her credentials certainly sound unbelievably impressive. She is a high-profile New York Times reporter who has received a MacArthur Genius Grant, won a Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting, and was just elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She achieved national prominence as the driving force behind the 1619 Project, a highly controversial research and educational program that recenters American history on slavery. And this spring, she was appointed to a prestigious faculty position at the University of North Carolina's School of Journalism and Media. But all those credentials are actually hollow. When you scrape away the facade of fancy words and accolades, Hannah Jones is exposed as somebody whose work is not so much journalism, but more like an outpouring of emotions, and some pretty hateful emotions at that. The 1619 Project, the crown jewel of her career, has been attacked and ridiculed by historians of all stripes and persuasions as unfactual and biased. And as bad as that sounds, her motives are even worse. In her own words, her underlying intent is to get white people to give up whiteness. And also fundamental to her writing is an attempt to elevate the black identity to the most central position in America. Let that sink in a bit. She wants to essentially eliminate the identity of one race while championing an exalted identity of another. There's a word for that, a word that is so overused it is losing all meaning. And I'm not going to use that word because it is becoming meaningless and because I find it to be tedious. But it's not so hard to see where Hannah Jones is coming from. She is promoting a very divisive and ugly form of identity politics. And in her promotion of those identity politics, she is not performing as a journalist, but as an activist willing to use any means possible to advance her political ends. That activist temperament is very much at odds with the principles of journalism and of higher education in general. After all, academia's most treasured value is reverence for the pursuit of truth. And in a public institution dedicated to the pursuit of truth, and also in a division of that institution dedicated to recording current events objectively, UNC hired somebody who is blatantly biased and plays fast and loose with the facts to teach, of all things, journalism. How did this happen? Exactly how she was chosen for the position and which authorities signed off is still trickling out, since public university personnel decisions sit behind a veil of privacy, and the school has not been eager to talk. But apparently, her appointment had the backing of the school chancellor and provost. The Board of Trustees rejected giving her tenure, so she will teach for a fixed term, which Fox News reported to be for 5 years. But one should not be so eager to commend the board for not giving her tenure. Had they exercised their full authority, they could have prevented her from being hired at all. Instead, Hannah Jones will be spreading her toxic influence on the UNC campus for the next 5 years, at least. For who knows what the school will decide 5 years from now. Of course, Hannah Jones is only one faculty member. The real problem is that North Carolina's public universities routinely hire people just as bad or nearly as bad as Hannah Jones. Consider Dwayne Dixon, a lecturer in anthropology also at the Chapel Hill campus. Dixon leads a chapter of an anarchist organization known as the Redneck Revolt that promotes violence as a political means. He has twice been arrested at local events, once in Durham for bringing a gun to a protest and once in Chapel Hill for assaulting a conservative reporter. He also bragged about intimidating people by brandishing a weapon at the infamous 2017 Charlottesville protest, and he uses his classroom to encourage students to join him at protests. And there have been many more questionable faculty appointments in the UNC system in recent years. Entire departments in the UNC system have been radicalized, or will be so in a few years when more sensible older faculty retire. So what can be done? How can we stop this takeover of our public higher education institutions by anti-American radicals? The most direct way is to let university trustees and state legislators hear from you and what you think about all this and similar situations. They are the ones who have some control over what goes on in the university system. Legislators control the purse strings and can make laws creating better standards for faculty hiring. Trustees have the right to review all faculty appointments, but until now, they have generally waved through everybody in some sort of toreador fashion without even minimal oversight. That has to stop. We do not need future generations being influenced by radical activists like Nikole Jones. Thank you.